Welcome back to another episode of The Hit. My name is James Layton, CEO and founder of Anderson James. This is the podcast where every single week I bring you a leader from our sector to discuss some of the biggest challenges in UK housing today. Today I was delighted to be joined by Jacque Allen, Chief Executive Officer at Your Housing Group. This was a really impactful conversation. We talk around Jackie's career to date, how she's developed her skill set over the years, created a really open and transparent culture at Your Housing, made a philosophy of one team where everyone feels part of a central vision. We talk about diversity, inclusion, their partnership with Papyrus and CALM around creating a less suicide prevention across the country, and we talk around how big of a role partnerships play for Jackie and what she's excited about in the future for Your Housing. I know you're going to love this episode, and if you do like it, I'd love your feedback and I'd ask you to like and subscribe. Jackie, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, James. Well, thank you for having me.
I'm excited. I can't wait for this. I think we've had a couple of missed attempts in terms of trying to get it in, so I'm excited to start. But as always, like we start, I just wanted you to give an introduction to the audience, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Jacque Allen. I'm the CEO of Your Housing Group. I've been with Your Housing Group now for about 3 years. Joined them as the Chief Operating Officer. And then just about 12 months ago, I became the CEO. So it's been quite a whirlwind. I joined in lockdown. I joined the first day that the first lockdown happened. And that was interesting to join an organisation under those circumstances and challenging. So that's who I am. I've been in the sector for almost 30 years now. I started off as a housing assistant, became a housing officer, a senior housing officer, an area manager, principal housing manager, and then assistant director, and then chief operating officer, and all the way through to being a CEO. So it's been, most of my working career has been in this sector. And I think this sector has always chimed really well with who I am and what I believe in. And it's given me everything that I would want from a job and a career. And I always think that when you're spending your life doing something you believe in, it gives you great peace in your life. And that's how I feel about it. And then personally, anything horses, anything equestrian.
Really?
I'm all that, yeah. Me and my husband have got 3 sons. They're grown up now, so they've had the cheek to leave home. So we're just getting back into the things that we like to do. And I'm shortly off to watch some horse trials at the weekend. So I'm looking forward to that, yeah.
My daughter's horse mad at the moment, so we went to badminton last year, and it rained every day, and it wasn't
every day. I was there.
Oh, was you? Fine.
Yeah.
So she's horse mad at the moment. I'm hoping it's going to end soon because it's expensive and it's hard travelling her around.
You have notes, James.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a bit to unpack there. Firstly, 12 months in as chief exec, is that right? So, talk us about that journey so far, as the YHG journey to this point.
Yeah, so when I joined Your Housing Group, the Chief Operating Officer role came about because they'd recently been downgraded by the regulator to G2, and a B2 followed shortly after. And I guess it came down to what YHG had been focused on. And prior to that, they had been very focused on really trying to deal with the housing crisis and to develop as many homes as they could, and they had strategic partnership with Homes England. And I think that's admirable, and it's really important that we develop as many new homes as we can. But what it can also do is take your eye off the ball in terms of the really, really important enduring purpose that we're here for, which is to provide really good quality homes where people, where your customers feel safe, where they feel they can thrive. And clearly there'd not been enough attention on that. So my role came about really to put a focus on those things.
Yeah.
And I always say this, James, I think the day job, the letting properties, the supporting customers, talking to customers, looking after neighbourhoods, all of that is really exciting. And to be a CEO, that should and must excite you. Otherwise, you might take your eye off the ball. And that's not good for our customers. So it was a great opportunity. It's the largest organisation I'd ever worked in. As I say, I joined in lockdown, and my first job was to lead us through lockdown. And who's ever done that before?
I know.
Jay? It's unique. Who's ever done that? And I didn't know anybody. I'd really not seen anybody at that point other than through the interview process. So it was a real challenge. And it's one of those moments in your careers, it's either going to be absolutely brilliant and you're going to totally thrive and you're going to get loads of new skills from, or it's going to be overwhelming. I'm pleased to say that I was able to really thrive, but mostly because colleagues that were around me supporting me were absolutely amazing. And my job was to make sure that I could get them and support them on the things that they needed to do. And that worked out just fine. So that's how it started. And then 2 years in, we'd kind of come out of the lockdowns, or we're coming out of the lockdowns. And the opportunity came up for the CEO role here. I was lucky enough and privileged enough to get it. And it was great timing because we're in the last 12 months of our 5-year corporate plan. We were going out for a new chair, and we had some vacancies in the executive team, the senior team. So it was a really great opportunity for me to start leading the business on those things and have a new chair and a really fantastic board to work with. So I've been incredibly lucky. Very exciting time.
Amazing. I can see the excitement. Was it always that you had in mind 29 years ago? Was that always the thing you wanted to become a chief exec? Was there ever that ambition? No,
I couldn't dream that big 29 years ago. No, I couldn't. My big dream in my career for housing, just going back, when I joined housing as a housing assistant, I remember being out in some neighbourhoods with some senior people, and I remember feeling this rush of excitement that, wow, I was part of something. This is it. This is what I want to do. And I remember thinking, one day I want to be an assistant area housing manager, because I worked in a local authority then, and the person showing me around was an assistant area housing manager. I thought, that's my dream. That's what I want to work towards. And I'm not sure I believed I could, but that was my big dream. Clearly wasn't dreaming, big enough at that stage. And so no, when I set off, never had CEO in my sight at all.
And how's that journey been for you? Because I get asked a lot of times from people, they wouldn't put themselves in that position sometimes because they don't believe, you said belief then, but don't believe that they're right, can do it, etc., etc. But kind of what's been I know we mentioned off camera, but there's been a bit of a battle to prove to yourself that you can do. Talk me through that journey and how you've embraced it, I suppose.
Yeah, I think as a female coming through, I remember when people started to say to me, you could be a director, you could be a CEO, and you feel this excitement, and that's something you think, yes, I would really like that. But then you start to talk yourself out of it. You start to think about all the reasons why that's, not right for you, or too far out of your reach, or you need a couple more years learning some stuff. You never say what that stuff is, because if you did, you'd probably realize you already know it. But you just have this stuff thing that you think that there's something you don't know that you need to know. And certainly there are always, for every good person around you who encourages you, there's probably at least a dozen who tell you all the reasons why you can't. And, and most of the time that has been male senior leaders. Yeah. My first senior job as a head of service, I went for that because a really good female said to me, no, you need to put in for this job. Come on, get on with it. And she supported me through it. But it was a female. And when I'd gone to speak to some other, male colleagues about it, they just helped me go down the rabbit hole of all the reasons why it might not be right just now. And there's no getting away from that. But don't get me wrong, I've worked with some amazing men as well who've really encouraged and supported me in my career. So, you know, I don't want to generalise because that wouldn't be fair.
No, but it's a good point. And one thing that I always observe in our market, specifically our market because I'm in it, I'm sure it's the same in other markets, is that women have to be encouraged to apply for things generally by their leader. Otherwise, they just talk themselves out of it. I'm not saying that's everyone, but the general opinion I get and conversations I have is I just don't think I'm ready. So I'm just going to leave it. And the men you speak to say, and there's been a study on this, hasn't there? They go, I can do everything on that job description.
And I'll worry about the detail later.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, that's good. And what's been some of the key observations of the difference between, because you've obviously worked at exec level for a long time now, what's been some of the key differences from becoming a chief exec rather than working in a discipline, if you will? Because like, I think passion's a big part of being a chief exec and exuding vision and values and all the other stuff. But what have you observed as some of the things you've had to change or be in the chief exec role?
Yeah, so I think for the chief exec role, it's all about leadership. It's all about people, you know, and I think when you're in the people business, it's a contact sport. People need to see you. They need to hear from you. They need to know who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in. Because people, you know, when people apply for jobs, they apply for it because it looks like a good job. You know, it's got things that I can do in it or things that I want to grow in. You know, it's in a certain locality, it pays what I'm looking for. But once they're in there, it's no longer abstract. They're working for people. And people don't leave buildings, they leave people. And I think as CEO, I'm really, really conscious of that it is about leadership. It's about people having that sense of belonging, that feeling that they are part of something bigger than themselves, that this is somewhere that they can grow, that they can make mistakes in a safe space, you know, that actually they can contribute. They can come in and have conversations and share their ideas, and they can leave the business at the end of the day thinking, you know, what I do, what I contribute really counts. And for me, I'm very, very focused on that. Whereas when I was a service director, I guess I'm focused on that for my directorate. But I'm also focused on delivering the practicalities of the job. And I know that I did my best work when CEOs gave me my head, let me do it, you know, would quite rightly tell me what they wanted done and what the success would look like in that, but let me plough my own trough in how I got there. And that's something that I've remembered and I try and bring about very much about my leadership. So I think it's that. And interestingly, when I was a director, I sometimes couldn't get involved too much in the detail, you know, bigger picture stuff. And as the CEO, I sweat the detail now more than ever because that's where the devil sits. And it's those detail, those nuances that really help me. I guess they really help me think about my leadership and what messages I need to be giving, being alert to the business, the temperature of the business, what's going on, what's keeping people awake, what are people concerned about, what are people happy about, so that I can maximise that as part of my leadership. Yeah, I think the other thing I noticed, James, and this always, when I tell people this, it always makes them laugh, but when I was a director, everybody wanted to know what I thought, how we should solve a problem. And as the CEO, nobody wants me to solve the problem. Because somehow that must feel like, you know, they've somehow not achieved it, or they've maybe worse, you know, failed in some way because they have to come and talk to me. And that's something I'm very conscious of. And I try and create an environment where it's very collaborative, and actually we can all throw our problems in or share our thoughts, or you know, and get a response. And you know, one of the things that I do is I ask people to, if somebody's struggling with something, I want everybody to run to them, run from them. And I think that's been one of my key messages. And I see that now in the business, and it creates a great atmosphere. It creates a safe space where people, you know, can really grow and do their best work.
Yeah, I've watched. Yeah, I'm sure it does. And I've watched some of your socials, and I think it's safe to say, like, that is you to a T in terms of kind of trying to create this safe space, let people celebrate their differences, all the other stuff, which I want to come on to because I've got loads of prep on that. The thing for me that you mentioned then, the contact sport bit, how important is culture in an organisation, and how important do you believe yourself as a leader that working in an office together, collaborating is important? Because there's so many different opinions on this, and I just like people that have a firm opinion. My opinion is I love being around people. That's why I set up a business. I love culture. I think culture underpins everything we do, and you can't do it remotely as well. But where do you stand on that for your housing?
So culture is everything. And when I talk about leadership, I'm talking about culture, and how you create that kind of culture where people want to come in every day, whether it's come into an office or come into a neighbourhood, it doesn't matter, or get into my van. I want to create a culture where people think, yes, this is a great place. Most of us have to come out and go to work. So we should do something that really adds value to us. And culture plays a big part of where people believe that's happening or not. So for me, culture is everything. In terms of, I guess what else I would say on that, I've worked for a number of CEOs. I've worked for some brilliant CEOs who have very much focused on culture. I've worked for, and they understand that leadership is a privilege. And it's never about power. It's the opposite of that. But I've worked for some CEOs who think it's all about power and it's their personal business. And actually, everyone should just do what they say. And it's okay for them to go round shouting and, thumping their chest and telling everybody they're not doing a good enough job. I've seen that, and I've seen the damage that it causes.
Yeah, of course.
And I have always been really conscious that when I became a CEO, that I believe you can lead an organisation by staying true to your values. And that's something that I always try and do. So for me, culture is really, really key. It does start at the top. Everybody is observing the CEO.
Always watching.
Observed,
always watching.
And there are some studies, aren't there, that if the person at the top of the organisation came in every day wearing a black jacket with gold buttons, it wouldn't be long before lots of people were wearing a black jacket with gold buttons. And that shadow of the leader stuff is so crucial that it's on my mind every single day. And if it wasn't, I wouldn't do the job because I would be doing it a disservice. Yeah,
and your leaders by your behaviours, and then they disseminate those behaviours. So everyone has to buy into the central vision, don't they? Just to take one step back, I suppose, just give us an overview or a helicopter view of your housing as we stand here today, just for people that might not know the business.
So your housing group is circa 30,000 homes across 32 different local authorities, but predominantly in the Northwest. We are an organisation that is very much heavily investing in its properties, and we have been for the last 3 years. It wants to make sure that its homes are really good quality. We have invested in our frontline services. We want our customers to be able to contact us, get the service they need, first time of asking to the standard required. And that's very much the journey that we've been on. We say that customers are everything. It's our enduring purpose. The reason we are here is to serve. It's about service. And that's the journey that we're on. And, we've made some great strides over the last couple of years, but the last 12 months, we've started to see some of our efforts really paying rewards. We've seen significant increases in our customer satisfaction.
Amazing.
We're seeing improvement in our services of what our customers tell us about them. We've still got some challenges, but we are working hard to meet them. And I think that's a really important thing about your housing group and where it is. We know exactly where we are. We have really good intelligence. We know exactly where we are. We are alive to it. Every week there is a meeting with, the executive and the senior team, and we talk about those things, and we're constantly challenging ourselves about how we can do them better. We're having live conversations with our board very honest discussions again. We're all collaborating our skill sets to keep moving YHG forward. And we won't stop until we've got this organisation to where our customers say, that's it, you're doing a brilliant job. You know, keep it up, or can you do a bit more here? And we'll keep going. And that's what YHG is all about.
There's a scale in the challenge as well, right? So 30,000 properties, there is a massive scale of challenge there. It's not, you know, and I'm not saying it's easier if you're a smaller housing association, but you've certainly got less people to impress and less people to make sure your services are being resounding success. So I think, it's a continuous improvement, isn't it? That's the big one.
I would say something about that. So prior to working here, I worked in what you call place-based organisations that are probably in one geographical area.
Yeah.
You know, the only housing organisation, or by far the major housing organisation in that area. And actually, they're under a big microscope.
Because of how localised it is.
If something goes wrong, everybody knows about it. So I say that because I remember many years ago being told, oh, if you've worked in a small organisation, it's a much harder job to work in a larger organisation. I don't believe that.
Right.
You have resources, don't you? You have more resources. Of course. I think it's about running a tight ship. I think that's the big difference. If I'm in an organisation that's more place-based, you know, I can easily go and have conversations with everybody I need to in the same day. I can get to any neighbourhood with probably in 20 minutes. I can't do that here. So being a tight ship, you know, having a very strong structure of how things work is essential. And I think that's the biggest difference. But I think people working in smaller organisations often have to have, you know, lots of skills and lots of trades to hand, and they are under a microscope. So I think
different challenges,
they all bring different challenges.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I know when we spoke about this offline, but when you took the CEO role, you were really clear in your messaging. Like, it was really important to you to set out a central vision, and you had the one team mentality.
Yeah.
And that had a big focus on diversity and inclusion, didn't it? So, like, how important, I know we've talked about culture, but how important was it to set the right tone in your messaging and your vision at that point?
It was. You get one chance to do this, James, when you become the CEO. So it doesn't get any more important than that. People will remember the first time you spoke to them and what you said was important. And that was certainly not lost on me. And, you know, it was not an opportunity that I was, you know, not going to waste. So the reason I got everybody together and did some key messages, rather than do this big tirade of, you know, where we are, where we're going to be and what you're all going to be doing, I kept it simple, because I think leadership needs to be kept simple. And I just said to them, you know, there's a few key messages here. One is there's only one team at your housing group and you are all on it equally. And I mean that, you know, and that comes from working perhaps for CEOs in the past who've created silos, who've created in teams. You're in the out team and you're on the in team. And you're on the in team if you're doing, you know, if you're agreeing with everything I say. I couldn't imagine anything worse than having a whole load of people around me agreeing with me, you know, because that's not healthy, and you're not going to do your best. So for me, that was a really, really important one to give out, saying, doesn't matter what's gone on in the past. It doesn't matter who you've worked for in the past. I'm now the CEO, and I'm telling you there's only one team and everybody's on it and everybody's getting that message at the same time. Yeah. You know, the other one was that I want you to come every day with a diverse, inclusive heart. The very essence of service is a diverse, inclusive heart. And if you haven't got that, you can't work in service. If it's something that you need to grow and hone, that's okay, as long as you're wanting to do that. But if you don't believe in those things, then you can't work here at your housing group. And I wanted to be really clear about that, you know, and that was really, really, really important to me. And the other one was, if somebody's struggling, run to them and help them. Top teams, they support each other in times of trouble. They don't step back and say, well, at least it's not me. They run to them and they sort them out. And the other one was to create a safe space. We'll make mistakes. Things will go wrong. What we do doesn't sound complex, but it's full of complexity. So things can go wrong. And if that's the case, don't worry about that. worry more about saying, hey, this didn't work out as we wanted it to. This is what I think's happened. This is what I think we can do. Can anybody help with that? Take the learning, best training course you'll ever go on, and move forward. Because most people are brilliant. Who can be brilliant 100% of the time? And I said, I don't want that, because I can't. So I don't want that pressure on me, because we're all human beings and we're a team and we support each other when we need it. And they were really vital key messages for me.
Yeah, and it's very obvious from the outside looking in as well. Very obvious. How many times did you have to reinforce that message? So, what was the reaction to the messaging? Because, sometimes in leadership, actions speak louder than words. And sometimes, how have you as a leader made sure people believe in that vision and believe in that one team stuff?
So there's a number of things. First of all, I think about those key messages every day. In every conversation I have, I weave them into those key messages, because seeing is believing, isn't it?
It is, yeah, of course it is.
You said. We've also done a new people strategy that is centred around those things. We've launched new values, which are centred around those things. And the main one is we ask people to care. The biggest value is care, because if you care, you won't go far wrong. And even if you do, it wasn't because you didn't care, because you're a human being and things don't always work out how you want them to, and that's okay. We've also just about to launch our the YHG way, we're calling it, and that's the way we should treat each other and the way we should look after our customers. And there's no getting away from, James, that if you look after your people really well, they'll look after your customers really well. That's not rocket science.
Yeah, of course.
You'd be amazed. Some of the people I've worked for previously, that was lost on them, but it's not lost on me. And I know many brilliant CEOs in this sector who that's not lost on. And that's been really key when you think some of the challenges we've faced over the last 12 months.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Really
so
true.
It's part of everyday life. You're trying to get it into your DNA, the YHG way. It's just the way. It's cemented. It's strong. It's immovable. As long as I'm the CEO, that will not move.
Yeah, and it's a really powerful message, but you've really done a good job, definitely, especially on socials, and I presume internally. I don't work for your business, but it feels like it's coming from the right place. And you said something then about inclusive and diverse hearts. Yeah. What does that mean to you, and how do you describe that to people that might need? Look, I'd love to say that we live in a world where everyone's got an inclusive and diverse heart. But I do believe that people can be educated to feel that way and to be that way. Agreed. Not this should be born that way. So clearly there's an education piece, but how do you explain that to your internal team, and how do we try and educate people to want to be more diverse and inclusive in their thinking?
So I think as citizens, we're a jamboree, aren't we? We're made up of many differences, and that's an amazing, wonderful thing. That only makes the world a much better place. So I'm not one of those people who says, I don't see difference. I absolutely see difference, because it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think, most people get that, but they don't know how to embrace it. They're scared of saying the wrong thing instead of being excited about saying the right thing.
Yep.
They worry that they might upset somebody inadvertently, and it becomes a barrier to really embracing difference. And I think because of the language I use, rather than talking about all the laws and legalities around it, which exist for very good reasons, but can stem debate and discussion, is I try and create an open discussion and make sure that it's very much part of everything we do, whether it's a report, whether it's a video we're doing, whether it's a conference we're doing, whether it's a meeting we have. Inclusion is always a part of that. It's always something for us to think about. And that really helps people to start to understand it in its wider sense, to feel that they can be part of it, to grow with it, but to feel that it's a safe space and they can be honest if there's something they don't understand, or they've got a limiting belief that could have come from, their childhood or anywhere else. I mean, the media, anything, that they can actually explore that, openly. And and then we can have this really healthy culture Because if you don't, what happens is people take people on who look and sound a lot like themselves.
Yeah.
And you do not create a diverse, inclusive place where people feel that sense of belonging. You know, your organisation should reflect the amazing world that we live in. And that's exciting. It's brilliant. I don't know everything about it. I don't know everything about, you know, every diverse strand going, but I do know that I believe in it. I do know I care, and I do know I'm excited about it. And that if I don't know something, I'll ask. And that's all I encourage people to do.
There's a braveness in that, though, for me. I remember putting a post up. I can't remember what it was about, but it was something diversity topic related, and I got something wrong. Right, it was a tiny detail, and I got berated for it online, and that really made me worry about But I obviously care deeply about it, and so. The thing that really does worry me is I think people have got to be braver to ask questions, because I don't understand everything, and no one can possibly understand that. But as a sector, what more could we do you think, to get the correct messaging out there? And what more can we do to appeal to everyone's needs and wants?
I think not to be defensive about it. So I'll give you an example, James. This is about a year ago now, maybe a bit longer. I took a photo of the senior team. We were in an away day, and I put it on LinkedIn. And somebody responded to say, it's not a very diverse team, is it? And somebody who this person works for contacted me to say, oh, I'm really sorry, you know, you can't always see inclusion, and that wasn't a fair comment. And I was like, well, actually it was, wasn't it? Because it doesn't look very inclusive. And what's wrong with them asking and me responding? I shouldn't have put the photo up or the post if I didn't want somebody to connect with it and say what they were thinking. So, and that just showed me actually how quickly people think, oh, no, you know, that shouldn't have happened. But actually that person had every right to say that, and I have every right to respond. And if they were right, they were right.
Of course.
And the conversation then should have been about, so what are we doing about it? Because that's the most important part of the whole thing. Whereas if you're defensive, you never get to that, you know. And one of the things that I have said to my team is, there are amazing, talented people out there from all diverse backgrounds. And it's our job to prove to them this is somewhere they should bring their talent. And when you start to look at it that way, it starts to feel a bit more, oh, I see. Yeah, people start to get it. You know, there are brilliant people out there who might think, well, I don't want to come and work there because there's nobody there that looks like me. Would I be welcome there? Do I need to take my talent to work with them? Because they might not be, you know, where I need them to be. They might not be as experienced as they should. And that challenge is on us to attract all these amazing, talented people who might not be, you know, looking at an organisation as a place they want to work. And I think when you start to break it down like that, you start to break down some of those barriers. You know, one of the things you'll saw I recently tweeted about is this book. Actually, it's Alex Manners, and he talks about his life living with
I've seen it, yeah. So
and I'd start to think about neurodiversity, because it's a word we all keep hearing, but I was thinking, you know, I don't know a lot about this. And I read Alex's book. Oh, it's amazing. What an amazing man. I mean, anybody who had him in their organisation would only be better off from it. And one of the things that we've started to look at since reading this book and since talking about it in our team is actually we need to change our recruitment processes, because it's still, you know, we still say it's competency based. Well, Alex is really competent, but the way you ask him a question is not the way, you won't get the answer looking for. And so it's something that should always be evolving. It's something that should always be on your mind. And I think because I'm so open about it, and because I've said, oh, I knew nothing about this, it enables other people to say, oh, well, if the leader didn't, and she's saying it, I can say it too. And for me, that is the best way forward. There is a difference, James, between those that are totally ignorant and, you know, have got views that are abhorrent. There's no place for those people. your housing group, and I think there's a big difference there. But I think the vast majority of people are decent, and you cannot be a CEO or in a leadership position if you do not have an inclusive heart. You've got no right being in that position.
I totally agree. And honestly, and I don't mind saying this, I've learned tons in the last couple of years because I've put myself in the epicenter of some of these diversity strategies.
Yeah.
I was ignorant to some of it by accident in terms of I just didn't understand it. And now I do. It's a different situation. I mean, from a recruitment perspective, it's what I do. I've written tons of strategies this last couple of years and still learning loads. How do we remove unconscious bias? Because you are absolutely right. Human beings like to recruit people that look, feel, sound like them. And that's difficult because from a leadership perspective, whether you're on board or not, you're not making every recruitment decision in your business. So how do we change recruitment processes, and how do we ensure that we are trying to remove that unconscious bias that does sit there? Definitely.
Well, you have to be alive to it. You have to be cognizant of that, that many people can easily fall into the trap of, taking someone who sounds and looks like them. And, I'm an NLP practitioner, and one of the things that teaches you to do is match and mirror people in front of you, because it creates connection, and actually that's the last thing you should do in a recruitment process. So you have to unlearn some of the things that you've learned. And I think for me, it's about making sure your organization is alive to it, that however you recruit and onboard people has to be a way that gives everybody the opportunity to be at their best. So you can't just ask everybody the same question in the same way and expect that to be a fair playing field for everybody. And how many people, being honest, James, how many people do you know in your life who are really great at interviews, when they come through the door, that's not quite what you thought you were getting? So you have to, you have to be alive to it. You have to have recruitment process in place that attract people from different backgrounds, that make you think, you know what, I can give my best in that. And you have to be aware of what those are. You have to go out, you have to ask people, you have to learn from experience. And we've been doing, as a senior team and some of our heads of service, so that's exec directors, and heads of service, we've been doing a leadership program, which is all around diversity and inclusivity. Because I feel like it's not something we should just talk about. We have to do it right at the top first to then be able to filter it down into the business. We all have to believe it, live it, so that when we are doing recruitment, or when we are, going out speaking to people or doing onboarding or inductions, that we're giving out the right messages as well. So again, it's just that making sure, it's really there in your DNA. And that people believe it.
And I think we've got a job, leaders in our sector have got a big job to do in encouraging and supporting their teams through what is a difficult process, because I don't know, I'm just giving you an example. If you work in asset management at the moment and you need an asset manager, the reality is you're fishing from a pool of people that can do that job as first and foremost. So you can only select diversity based on that skill set. We've got to find a way as a sector of encouraging our managers to hire people on potential and on, because they might not be diverse in some of the areas. And I've noticed this from doing recruitment, that you are pulling from pools, especially if you're recruiting Liverpool and you're looking to change some of the diversity strands. You sometimes can't because of the pool of people that you are pulling from. And so you'd have to go out of our sector to be able to find those diverse, really talented people, but might need to develop a skill set or develop some of the skills they need to do the particular job.
Absolutely. So I think it's important that you are widening your pool, because you can't, it's not right, is it, to say, well, we're not getting enough applicants in. Then you have to put, why not? What are we not doing? Are we advertising it in the right way? Is the advert reaching people? And we talk about people, don't we? And we say, hard to reach groups. I hear that within this sector, some of our customers are hard to reach. Well, how hard to reach can they be when you know their addresses? I mean, you've got to ask that question, haven't you? How hard to reach is that then? You've got their names and addresses and their contact details. Really? You can't use that. If the way you appear as an organisation, if the things you say that you do and believe in, you know, if the way you advertise things isn't reaching out to a wide plethora of citizens, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, agreed.
And as an organisation, and you have to stop and reflect. And that's why after, you know, some of the stuff we've been doing, the leadership program that I've talked to you about, you know, reading Alex's book, talking to other colleagues about it, and you'd be amazed, you know, after I'd read Alex's book and put it out there, the amount of colleagues who've come up to me and said, oh, I have this, or somebody in my family has got that.
Perfect. Yeah.
Opens the debate. It's suddenly, this is amazing information. And, you know, and wow, thanks for telling us that, because we can learn from you. And suddenly, you know, people think, oh, great, you know, they can bring their whole self to work. Yeah. And I think that's amazing. And that is the job of a CEO, to create that culture.
100%. And the other thing that you've been big on, and I've seen this on 4 or 5 of your posts that I've seen, have been around how you send home staff, i.e. physically, mentally well, and quite rightly, by the way. But what are you doing, you know, to advocate mental well-being as a top priority? Because it obviously is a top priority, but how have you put that at the top of the agenda, and how have you created that openness so people can tell you how they're feeling? Because this whole episode feels like we're going to title it openness, because it's clear to me that you just want people to feel like they work and live in an open place where they've got a safe space to be able to talk to you about how they're feeling. How?
Yeah, so it was one of my key messages right at the beginning. I said to everybody, my role is to send you home safe and well, you know, to the people who care about you. That's my role. That's something I should focus on every single day, pushing ourselves to make sure that we're doing that. And I said to people, you know, if we're not doing that, you need to tell me. You know, if there's something we can do better, you need to tell me. Because, and something that I said that really resonated with people, and I say this a lot, I say, if you tell me, I'll believe you. You don't have to come here and prove it with loads of information. If you tell me, I'll believe you. I'll take that information in the spirit that it's been given. And I think that's really important to do that, because that creates free-flowing, honest conversations. You know, and we do have a really big health and wellbeing program for all of our colleagues. We also, I recently launched something called Time to Talk About Us. And that's where I bring lots of people across the business together to say, how are we? I don't want to talk about work. You know, I just want to talk about you. And I also start off saying how I'm feeling, you know. And I recently held one, and I said to people, I've been feeling, you know, there's a lot going on in the sector. It feels like, you know, every day there's a new story about a different housing organisation not doing well as they can, and, you know, and speaking to the CEOs, it can be quite overwhelming at times. So I shared with people that I sometimes feel that, and I shared with people that some days, you know, I've not stopped, I've not, you know, taken time to have a cup of tea and talk to somebody. Everything's work-based. And I said, you know, is it like that for you too sometimes? And then they say, well, yeah, it is. And then we start to talk about what we can do to unpick that. Because if you don't unpick it, it becomes the norm. And then nobody even knows it's happening because it's just normal. So my job is to make that not normal, so that people recognise it and know we need to do something about it. And the time to talk to us sessions are really important, because if I stand there as a leader and say that, then it gives everybody else.
Oh, yeah, it's authenticity, isn't it? Because if you sit there and go, I'm absolutely fine, everything's great, I feel great, and everyone's going to say the same thing. Everyone puts a facade up and you walk out the room, everyone's fine. So.
Yeah, I used to work for somebody, and it didn't matter how much work you did, how many things that you solved, you know, how many things you were on. It'd be like they go out of the way to find the one thing you weren't, and then almost be really pleased with himself that he found it and he got it. And, you know, this one thing, and that makes you, you know, useless or not good at what you do. And it's like, wow, you know, instead of talking about the 1 out of 100 that wasn't, I'd rather talk about the 99 that we did brilliantly, you know. And actually, I'd rather say, would you be better doing, you know, 95 rather than 99? You know, let's talk about it. Let's have this conversation, because you're amazing and you do an amazing job. And I have to work hard to look after you, to keep you wanting to come into work every day as your best self. Otherwise, you'll speak with your feet and you'll take your brilliant talent and work somewhere else.
Maybe in another sector as well.
Yeah, another sector or another house. You know, it's my job to work hard to keep people here in this business.
Yeah. And it's not just collaboration internally that I've noticed with you. It's collaboration externally. There's a lot of partnership stuff that happens at your housing group. So first one, and probably linked to that mental health and wellbeing stuff, which is close to my heart, is that you've partnered with CALM and Papyrus, haven't you? Talk to us a little bit about why and the reason that it's important to you as a person and the organisation.
So the biggest killer in males, for example, under 50 is suicide. That's frightening. Don't you think? That is terrifying. And we know through COVID, you know, when people are living in poverty, and we know more people are living in poverty, and we're hearing much more about suicide and poor mental health, you know, that you think, you know, as a leader of an organisation, you've got to go out and have that conversation. You've got to be out and proud and say to people, look, you know, if you're struggling, we will help you. You know, whatever you need, we will do. We will help you. And bringing in specialists like those two charities, and we had Andy's Man Club in as well, to come in and talk to people. It might save a life for all we know, James. You don't know if you save lives, but you certainly know if you haven't. And the impact of that is devastating forever. And for me, people's well-being is really important. Not only are colleagues here citizens too, dealing with all of the complexities of life, you know, but they're coming in and they're supporting customers who are going through that. That's a lot. That's a lot to take on as a person. And that's sending people home safe and well. It's a big part of that key message. Let's have conversations. Let's be out and proud that people have these thoughts, that people go through, you know, poor mental well-being, poor mental health, that people find it hard to talk and reach out for help. Let's be out about that, and let's see if we can break down some doors and we can support people and keep them safe. And that's really, really important. And we will continue to do that. They're not one-offs. The constant ongoing things.
And they have to be. And I think as well, like, I've lost someone from suicide, and the devastation it causes to their family, the wider, like, I mean, it's huge. But I just think that if you look after your employees' well-being, you'd hope, and well, they'll be out there in the communities that they serve looking for those signs in others to try and make them open up and talk. So your residents, your tenants, other people. So it is a really, really good initiative. And there's some other initiatives that I know that have been big. So you have a collaboration with the Above and Difference programme. Talk us about that, Above Difference.
Yeah, so that's the programme I referred to earlier, the leadership programme. Above Difference come in and they talk about inclusivity as a key part of your leadership skill, you know, something that has to be embedded into you as a leader to be a true leader. And they're doing that with the executive team, with the senior team, and some of our heads of service, key people who have lots of colleagues who report into them in their service areas. And it's all part of that inclusive diversity, you know, key message that I gave. Can't just say it. You've got to keep doing things that show you mean it, you know, and Jennifer, who runs that, is absolutely amazing. And she creates a safe space, and she creates discussion, and she creates thinking. And that's helped us as a team to have those discussions and do that thinking together so that we can share that down the business. Our board are about to embark on it next. So everybody at the top of the business understands what that means, understands our approach as an organisation, and is passing that down the line constantly. So you can see from everything I say, those key messages. They
underpin everything.
Underpin everything. I meant them. I meant every one of them. And people need to know that what you say is authentic. It's not just some fancy words that you think sound good. I believe in them. If I didn't, I would not be a CEO. I wouldn't do it. but I
Amazing.
believe in them. I would never sell the role I've got and the privilege of being the CEO. I would never sell it short. And, you know, we will carry on that way.
How many, like a few last things, because I know we need to wrap up, but there's going to be a part 2, I think, here, because I can feel there's still loads I want to ask you. But second, how have your experiences shaped your being a visionary? Because you clearly are quite a visionary in the way you lead people. But how has your good and bad experiences shaped your leadership style? Because like everything you say feels like it links back to a bad experience you may have had, and then you've gone, how do I fix that in my organisation?
Yeah. I think for me, I remember probably I was a head of service then. I don't know, maybe people would say, to be an exec director or a CEO, it's all about strategy, you know, and you might be too operational, Jackie, or I've heard them say that to other people. You know, I've even had people say to me, I can't apply for that job, I'm too operational. It's like, you know, you've got to be able to deliver the work. You've got to be able to do the job, because actually that's pretty strategic to deliver your plans, you know. You know, and I remember that always being played back to people, like, you know, I'm a strategist or I'm a visionary, or, you know, I'm always looking 10 years ahead. It's like, good for you. You know, good for you if you can see what's 10 years ahead. I think as a leader, it's really important that, yes, you're aware, you're alert to what's going on, you're alert to what's coming, and you're also alert to, if you don't do things, what the repercussions of that could be. Yep. And then on top of that, I've always had quite an imagination. My mum and dad would quite happily tell you that, James. I've always had an imagination. And I think, first of all, I'm quite kinesthetic. I feel it first, and then I start to see it. And then I start to design it. But I always try to do it around things that will really connect with people, things that are real, not over-designed. I can
tell that.
You know, and I guess, so that's something that comes from there. I think other things that have shaped me, I've worked for some brilliant CEOs, you know, who have shown me that it's all about people, customers and colleagues, you know, it's all about that. And I've worked for somebody who was absolutely dreadful at that, with legendary poor behaviours that nobody ever thought they could do anything about. And you learn as much. You can either be bitter about these things, or you can think, well, you know what, I can learn from this, because you learn loads of good stuff from the good ones, but you can also learn stuff from the bad ones and think, I'm never going to fall into that. I'm never going to sleepwalk into those behaviours or those beliefs. And that way you get to say, thank you very much. You taught me something, even if it's only I'll never be like you, you know. But it just means that you're crafting your leadership constantly. And I talk to my senior team about, we craft leadership. You know, you have to work at it. You have to look after it. You have to keep it healthy. So I think all of those experiences led me to where I am today. And I share them. We have a lead program here, and it's where you've identified colleagues who are going to be future leaders in this sector at some point. And I do a session with them, which tells you the 10 things nobody will ever tell you, or you'll get from a book, 10 things that really happened to me. I call it leadership blues or manager blues, and I share it with them, and we have some fun with it. But yeah, I just try and pass on my experience, because nobody's, you know, it's rarely linear, your career, and it's never going to be without problems or fault or things going wrong. And it's important to share that, because people can assume once you're a CEO that everything's perfect and you just must have been brilliant at everything. And I know there might be a few out there who think they were, but I've not come across anybody, and I certainly wasn't. So I like to share that. I like to keep it real. And that's what I think leaders should do. I keep it real, and that's the biggest thing I've learned.
Yeah. Last couple of things, because I appreciate we're running out of time, but the last one thing that I'm really interested about you is you've got this really caring personality, But how do you make sure that you're at your best and that you look after yourself as a leader? Because clearly no one ever talks to chief execs about that. They just think that kind of like, you don't have any mental health issues or anything. So who looks after you, and how do you make sure that you're bringing the best version of you to work every day?
Yeah. So I think it is about, you have to understand you and how you work. So you have to be cognizant of, oh, am I feeling at my best? And if not, what am I going to do about that? And that was, as I said, I told you before, that was what I shared with colleagues at the time to talk about us session. Mm-hmm. But how I try and do it, and I try and encourage everybody else to do this, is if I need to take some time, I take some time. Colleagues here and I'm sure in this sector up and down the country work really hard and often quite long hours. So nobody should ever feel bad about saying, you know what, time out. I'm taking some time out and I need to get myself in a good place, because you will deliver much better in that way than if you're doing something from, you're not feeling at your best. Horses have been in my life all my life, James. And I always find, I live quite near a field where there's some horses in it. I always know when I need some time or I just need to think, because I find myself with those horses and stroking them, and that's my thing. It's not going to be everybody's thing, but I always say to people, find the thing that helps you just to be you, to ground you. And I have a great family. My husband and 3 sons, me and my husband have been together over 30 years. I've got 3 amazing sons. Family life is not without its problems over the years.
Of course,
you get ups and downs when you're raising children, and marriage has to be worked out and all the rest of it. But I'm really lucky. They are my support network. I don't talk to them about work, but I might talk to them about how I'm doing. And because I've tried to raise my boys to be really great human beings who are only going to add value to the world, because that's the responsibility of any parent. And and I will talk to them about all kinds of subjects, and they'll come back and talk, and that helps them grow, and me. And so you have a responsibility to keep yourself well, to be cognizant when perhaps you're not, and that's what I do. But I get a lot of energy from talking to customers and colleagues. That gives me loads of energy, because as soon as I'm having conversations, I start getting all these, I could do that.
I can see your head going when you're talking about this. And final question for me, I mean, it's really nice that you're so open, but the one thing for me is you've done so much in 12 months. I mean, I think you've put so much into the last 12 months, but kind of like, what are you excited about for the future of your housing group and your career? Because you relatively got loads of, you've only been in the role 12 months. You've got so many more ideas I can see. So what's the future look like? And what are you excited about in the short and medium term, I suppose?
Yeah. So it has been a great first 12 months, but I'm not going to say I've had a great 12 months. It's been a great 12 months because we've had a great 12 months. Yeah, I work with a great team here that have been incredibly supportive. They're all brilliant, maybe in different ways, at different times, in different things. But their support, has been amazing. And the feedback that I've had from colleagues and customers, it just completely energizes you to want to do better. And that's what feeds and nourishes me. In terms of your housing group going forward, we are in the middle of developing our new 5-year corporate plan, or 3 to 5 year corporate plan. That's really exciting. That will see us build on the successes we've had over the last couple of years. And I'm really excited to launch that new corporate plan that's underpinned by those values that we've got. And that's, YHG way that I talked about. So I think it looks really exciting. I think we will definitely develop more homes going forward, something we've always done very, very well here. There's a brilliant team. We will continue to embrace the consumer standard, and we're doing lots on that. We have something like, over 2,000 customers who are now actively involved with us, whereas 3 years ago it was about 100, and that's amazing. And I think we will keep moving towards that creating a tight ship where everybody knows where everything is, who to go to, you know, how I can get support. We'll continue to look at our operating model. Do we need to change, tweak, move anything around so that colleagues have got enough resources, you know, that they can do their best work? And that's really where we're very focused at the moment, looking at those things.
Amazing. And a nice way to end. I think, honestly, it's been one of the most open episodes we've done in terms of, you know, I hope and I think that our sector's in good hands when we've got leaders like yourself and others, to be honest, that are really, really embracing the way that we need to move and which direction we need to move in to make this sector even greater than it already is. I'm sick of the doomsaying. I'm sick of all of the bad press that the sector gets when there's so many good things going on. Obviously, we've got an obligation to serve, but I think it's so good to get your insights because you're so fresh of ideas, because you've not been a chief exec for long. So therefore, you can really try and change the way things are being done. But really, thank you all for your time and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much. And like you said, maybe there's a part 2. I can tell you some interesting stories.
Yeah, we should do the 10 blue things that you said. We should do the 10 things.
We'll do that, James.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay. All right, Cheers. Thanks, James. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Hip. If you'd like to hear more from us, please be sure to follow us on your favourite podcast platform. We are also running a 30-minute clinic free of charge to any clients that want to recruit in a more inclusive way. For more information, please reach out to us on our website, andersonjames.com.